Well, hello again, friends, and welcome back to the world of Nytherra. I can't wait to get back into it with you. Today we're going to talk about how in the world of Nytherra, the arcane arts and the powers of magic have been all but lost and forgotten. In their place, the power vacuum that they have left has been filled by the powers of technology. Now, how can technology possibly replace something as insane as magic? That's what we're going to get into today, so finish your magic circles and engage your flywheels, because this one's going to get crazy. In this video, I'm going to be referencing lore that was built up in the first video on the world of Nytherra. So if you haven't watched that video, go ahead and watch that one first and then come back and join us again here. And we'll be so excited to have you. Now, as in that video, if you'd like to avoid spoilers, you can look for this symbol up in the corner. It'll tell you when to skip to avoid any spoilers that come up in this video. Now, how do I go about replacing something as insane as magic with something as mundane as technology? I think an important place to start is finding what the difference is between the two. Magic is something that's incredible, and all of its sources have been destroyed. There's going to be consequences for that cannot be reversed. Technology, on the other hand, is something that's understood, but it can potentially recreate many of the effects that magic could have. After all, we've built boxes that can have artificially warm or cold environments in real life, and fantasy technology is only going to be that much more insane. So I want to keep a difference between the two by making magic feel unknowable. It's kind of incomprehensible. After all, it is from ancient sources that have now been destroyed. The gods have died and the magic has been destabilized. However, I want technology to be something that's well understood. After all, humans made it, and I really hope that they can understand it. As a quick side note, when I was planning for this world to be a D&D campaign world, we were just going to reflavor all of the spells as technological effects. Now that it's not going to be a D&D campaign necessarily, I get to give it more in-depth world building and really build into it. I'm really excited. Technology can do so many things, and in this world I want it to feel like there's infinite potential for what it can do. But I also want it to feel rather steampunk, with brass gears and copper tubes, with coal and steam power, and perhaps a touch of the macabre. I want the people of this world to have experience with blimps and with trains and with the other classics of steampunk technology. But I also want them to have experience with the darker side of technology, with siege engines, with tanks, perhaps even with guns. And the people of this world will be affected in every aspect of life by technology. It will affect how they move around, it'll affect how they interact with each other, and even how they fight. The first Sentinel pioneered many of the technologies that we see in Nytherra today, but he hasn't been around for centuries, and in his absence, the people have not stopped innovating. Because of this, technology laces their everyday lives. Just as in our world, where we see technology in cooking, in cleaning, in our work, and in our play, the people of Nytherra see many of the similar benefits. However, their technology has one big difference from ours. All of their technology is analog. They haven't created anything digital. They don't have LCD displays, they don't have LED lights. Instead, everything is analog. Within the world of Nytherra, most of the new technologies are created by lone scientists or engineers, or by small groups of them working together. 3 times a year, they come together and they host these festivals. And within these festivals, they show off the new inventions or ideas that they've had, the new discoveries made. And they try to build the future together, to create technologies that will outlast them and that will improve the lives of those around them. And perhaps that'll make them a little bit of money on the side. For the vast majority of the technologies that they create, there's no connection to the old magic. There are a few artifacts left over from the days of Brasshaven that do, and there are a few select groups that have managed to recreate these connections in the modern day. We'll get to that in a minute, though. In the video on the Welcome to Nytherra, Archibald introduced...
Pardon, did I hear my name?
Yeah, Archibald, I'm here with our friends again. We're talking about the technology of your home.
Oh, how wonderful. Friends, it is good to see you again. The technology of Nytherra is truly astounding.
Of course, Archibald. I was actually just about to tell them more on the automatons of Brasshaven, and I'd love it if you could tell us more about how those were made.
Oh, I would love nothing more. My friends, the original automatons of Brasshaven were quite something. There were those made for war, and those for work, and those for scholarly activities. However, there was something consistent in all of these. They were not made of metal. They were made primarily of the deceased. Through this, the minds and hearts of our fighters, of our workers, and of our scholars could be continued. The first Sentinel evidently pioneered this technique, and by it, the intelligence of our deceased could be continued. Over time, this process was lost, and we no longer participate in this kind of death ritual. In fact, there is debate over whether it was ever practiced at all. I myself believe that it was done, but there are people who argue that there is no conceivable way for it to be done, and since we cannot recreate it today, it could never have been done. However, we do have examples of biological technologies. They are exceptionally rare, however.
How many examples of it do you have?
There is only one that we have for certain. It was a bay door discovered in a chamber at the base of Sentinel Mount. Within that bay door was discovered biological material, which was believed to have opened and closed the door. There are two others that were pieces of metal with porous voids inside that we believe, and it's widely accepted, that those voids were filled with biological material, although we have no exact proof, only the evidence provided by that bay door.
How interesting. Thank you, Archibald.
Of course! Is there more to cover today?
There is, and I'll be sure to reach out to you again if your experience is needed once more.
All right, it is quite good to see you again, my friends.
What a wonderful guy. Now, what those in Nytherra don't know is that incorporating biological material into technology was quite common in the early days of Brasshaven. Most of that biological material has since decayed because it needs something to sustain it. The Witness is one exception because he's able to be moving around and finding his own sustenance. Another exception is that bay door that Archibald spoke of. That bay door was in an emergency bunker, and it effectively became mummified and preserved through that. I wonder if they'll rediscover this technology in the future. With this extravagant analog technology being so commonplace, the stories told in Nytherra probably won't focus too much on the impact of this technology on the society. Instead, this technology will be the backdrop, the setting for the impact of the old magic is not logical. It doesn't work as cogs and gears do. You can't confidently predict how it will work. To entangle yourself with it is inherently a risk. The old gods used to control the magic. It was inherently tied to their identity. Mortals couldn't wrest control of it for themselves. Instead, mortals created ritual practices meant to call the powers of the gods, to create a bountiful harvest, to call in the rainy season, or to bring forth some other form of magic. Since the gods have died, their magic has become completely untethered. When they died, most of it disappeared overnight, its power vanishing into the cosmos. What little is left, however, can now be controlled by mortals. And instead of needing to convince a god to grant their request, mortals can now guide the magic to do what they want themselves. But doing so is so incredibly risky and complex that very few can ever attempt it, let alone survive their attempt. It used to be bound by rune and ritual, and it could be used to create vast and far-reaching effects that could affect entire regions of the world. However, with the death of the gods, the old magic can no longer create these vast effects. Instead, it is bound to much smaller applications. Because of its powerful and mythic nature, very few care to try and wrest its will to their own, and even fewer survive their hubris. Magic requires energy to take root. It used to draw this energy from the once gods, but now that they are dead, it has to find that energy from somewhere else. If one isn't careful, they may find their own life force being used to supply that energy. However, despite the inherent risks that the magic posed, some have still tried to bend it to their will to enhance their technology. Some have even seen success in this, to varying degrees. This can manifest in a number of ways, including more powerful or accurate weaponry, faster transportation, or more efficient technology in any number of other ways. Perhaps, however, the most important and powerful of these amalgamations of magic and technology is arcane intelligence. The stand-in for AI in Nytherra is very similar to the artificial intelligence of our world. However, it varies in a few key points. Among these points is that artificial intelligence isn't actually intelligent. It can't think for itself or create new ideas. Arcane intelligence, on the other hand, can, because it is created by the power and the conscience of those once gods. The arcane intelligence can actually create new thoughts. Its generative capabilities aren't bound by what it has been fed. It can create new ideas. Another difference between artificial intelligence and arcane intelligence is that arcane intelligence can communicate with those who operate it directly, through telepathy of a kind. Imagine a rifle that can give you input on your aim, or on the wind speed, Or imagine a train that can start and stop all by itself, all the while communicating to the passengers inside directly to their minds about the journey. Or imagine a factory machine that can talk about the abnormalities that may be occurring before they cause problems to the operator. Part of what gives arcane intelligence such incredible potential as a story tool is the way that it mirrors the elder algorithms that we talked about. Because the elder algorithms are a form of magic infused with technology, that is, the older gods' spirits and souls, almost, put into a form that is technological. The arcane intelligence mirrors them in that it is technology infused with magic instead. Because arcane intelligence is effectively an elder algorithm on a really small scale, we can see how the humans would interact with the power of the gods. And it can become a tool for far greater benefit, or it can become the key to their destruction. And the story can revolve around this form of magic that is being reintroduced, that people will have to grapple with. And in many ways that mirrors our lives in the real world. Artificial intelligence can do many powerful things. It can also do a lot of really bad things. Thank you so much for joining me once again to talk about the technology of Nytherra. I'd love to hear your thoughts below on artificial intelligence, arcane intelligence, the more mundane technologies, or anything else. And always remember that maybe the real intelligence was the friends we made along the way. Have a wonderful night.